Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. I am back. I guess if you're looking at percentage-wise, I think I'm at like 85, 90%, but I'm here back with you on the program. Hope everybody is having a wonderful, Wednesday, Thursday? It's Thursday right here in the Tampa Bay area. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Man, you with a big Europa League clash with Real Sociedad today, so you know I am rocking the away kit or the third kit. Yeah, good stuff all the way around. What is all this stuff? Why does Stu hate us? All right, guys, hold on. I literally have just been. Oh, and there we go. Here to stay no more. So here is the announcement from the Tampa Bay Rays. Opening day is right around the corner. Hold on. I'm going to put everybody out real quick just so everybody knows that we're live. Okay? Hold on, folks. I'm putting this out there. All right. Let's give everybody a second. Thanks. I appreciate everybody out there. Love you all. I'm going to wait for it to populate a little bit. Again, make sure you're following all social media platforms at Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's read what the Rays just put out. And this is at 11:38, so about 20 minutes ago. Opening day is right around the corner, and we are eager and prepared for what promises to be an exciting and fun season of baseball. Thanks to our dedicated staff and players, our fans will experience the game in one of the most intimate settings in modern baseball history. As we all recover from impacts of the hurricanes, we are incredibly grateful for the support from our fans and the wider Tampa Bay community. We are especially appreciative of how our corporate partners have stepped up during this challenging time for our organization. After careful deliberation, we have concluded we cannot move forward with this new ballpark and development project at this moment. A series of events beginning in October that no one could have anticipated led to this difficult decision. Our commitment to the vitality and success of the Rays organization is unwavering. We continue to focus on finding a ballpark solution that serves the best interest of our region, Major League Baseball, and our organization. The city of St. Petersburg is currently advancing plans to restore Tropicana Field for the 2026 season. We are thankful for their efforts and are excited to return to our home field next spring. Signed, Stu Sternberg, Tampa Bay Rays principal owner. So I can't say I'm surprised. Can't say I'm surprised at all. And it was only a matter of time before we were going to hear something like this. With the growing sentiment and the growing discourse throughout the Tampa Bay area about what Stu is all about, and hearing, I want you guys to remember one thing. Do you remember when we had Chris LaValla on the first time, the Pinellas County Commissioner? Do you remember how he was public enemy number one before he came on our podcast here? And I say our podcast because as much as it says the Recher podcast, you want to talk about a show for the people, this is the show for the people right here. And after we had Chris LaValla on the program, notice how the narrative changed. Notice how people were listening to what he had to say. And instead of just, oh, wow, he's a hater and he doesn't want baseball here. You notice how everybody was like, I kind of see where this guy's coming from. There was a hesitancy when the deal was announced from very few people. Just last year, I remember, because we were on Tampa Bay Sports Radio, WDAE, the entire day. We were on there, and everybody was so freaking happy. Everybody was, listen, they were overjoyed. New ballpark, here to stay. All that mumbo jumbo. And now a letter like this comes out from Stu Sternberg. So all the people that were anti-Stu this entire time, they were proven right. They were proven right. And you could say whatever you want, like, oh, what happened in October. Listen, there was a lack of transparency from the county commissioner towards the county commissioners from the race. There was a lack of transparency towards the St. Pete City Council. You had to know things were really turning for the worst when Ken Welch and the St. Pete City Council, who have been lockstep, arm in arm with the race, trying to get this done. And you could see just in the last couple of weeks, they were just like, what is going on here? What is the deal? We had Paul Russo on earlier this week talking about Joe Malloy, who's leading a group of investors that are interested in buying the Rays. I know there's another group as well. So there's two groups that are going to try to salvage baseball in the Tampa Bay area. Now, does that mean that the stadium is going to be in St. Pete? Probably, because the framework is there. I do think there is hope of a new owner. I am not surprised one bit that this announcement was made today. Because just like the Montreal decision and the Montreal announcement, Stu has proven to be tone deaf when it comes to this organization and the interrelations with the community. I asked Stu this after the announcement of Montreal. And if you were watching the video, you know. I asked Stu Sternberg directly, and it wasn't the first time I asked him on air. There's record of this. Do you feel like there is a disconnect between the Tampa Bay Rays and the community? And he said no. You could say a lot of things about Stu Sternberg in his tenure and a lot of the things that he said and a lot of things that he did. But that right there, that was not true. There's no way. And the fact that he was lying or he actually thought in his mind that things were okay just shows that he's probably not the right guy to be the owner of the baseball team here in the Tampa Bay area. And I am not looking for Orlando to be a factor. Commissioner Rob Manfred, Commissioner Rob Manfred is looking at this situation going, okay, we got to move forward. Let's move forward and let's find somebody else because we want to keep it in the Tampa Bay area. Now, our good friend Colleen Wright just wrote this up. Tampa Bay Rays owner Stu Sternberg on Thursday called St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch to inform him the Rays will not meet the March 31st deadline to move forward with the stadium deal. The Rays faced that March 31st deadline to move forward with a deal to build a $1.3 billion stadium and develop the land around into the historic gas plant district. If the Rays pull out, the deal approved with votes from the city council and county commission would fall apart. We knew that one of the main reasons why Stu didn't want to pull out of this deal is because in that original deal, it said that even if he sold the team, he would still own the area around the ballpark. And that was one of the biggest red flags to me when I was able to hear and see this deal. Why would you put something in there? It's like going into a relationship. It's like, hey, well, when we break up, let's make sure that we do it like this. Like, nobody does that. Nobody in a successful relationship thinks like that. What is that all about? So many missteps, time after time after time again. Stu just continuously alienated this fan base, pushed them farther and farther away of really investing into this team. And I feel terrible. for Eric Neander and Matt Silverman and Brian Auld, who have to pick up the pieces, and Kevin Cash and these players on the field. They don't deserve this. I've been saying this since day one. They don't deserve all of this crap. Stu Sternberg was running this like a business. And I get it, right? Baseball is a business. I understand that. But if people look at you and they see that that's how you're treating it, that you're not putting the priorities and the likes and the wants and the needs of people in this community at the forefront, people aren't going to invest in your product. I know everybody's going to compare it to Vinnick, and I know to the Rays that's unfair. Maybe to Stu that was unfair, but it's the reality of the situation. We live in a comparative society. We live in a society where we have arguably the best owner in sports. And to a lot of people, possibly the worst owner in sports. How do you not compare the two? How do you not compare Stu Sternberg to a guy in Jeff Vinnick who ripped out all the seats at Amalie Arena and made sure that every single seat in there was cushioned for you so you were comfortable watching games and supporting the Lightning? Not many people can say that they've interviewed Stu Sternberg and Jeffrey Vinnick. I can tell you that firsthand, 6 weeks apart. And Stu Sternberg, even though he was very good to me, and I thought for the most part very honest in the answers, we probably didn't like the answers, but he was at least honest about them. But there was always just a little bit of, You walk away from that conversation and you're just like, I don't know. The last conversation Zach and I had with them at FanFest a couple of years ago, you guys remember that. And the big takeaway from that conversation with Stu was what? Yeah, our payroll is going to be $90 million. I'm going to be taking a loss on my P&L statement this year. Think about how hollow that statement runs true even today on March 13th, 2025, where last year the owner of your baseball team was talking about taking a loss on your P&L statement. And now people have trouble buying eggs. People have trouble keeping a roof over their heads, finding a job. People are dealing with the aftermath and the after effects of the hurricane. And those are the conversations and those are the comments that are going to ring true. Nobody feels bad for Stu Sternberg. Nobody felt bad then. Nobody's going to feel bad now. Nobody's going to feel bad in the future. Nobody's going to look back on his tenure with the Rays with much pride. The Rays were successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of Stu Sternberg, not because of. Say that again. The Rays have been successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of him, rather than because of him. And listen to what Brian Auld and Matt Silverman have to do every single time something like this happens. They have to go out in front of everybody, and they have to answer all of these questions, and they have to do all these things to clean up Stu's mess. They're the people that came to iHeart that one time after the whole Montreal thing. It wasn't Stu. It was Brian and Matt looking down one end of the table to us, telling us at DAE what the deal was and why they wanted to do something like this, even though we vehemently thought it was a bad idea. They told us. They said, this is the only way we can keep baseball here. The only way we can keep baseball here is by doing half a season here, half a season in Montreal. What? Seriously? And then the deal follows through. Stu goes on Rays Radio that night with maybe not that night, but soon thereafter with Neil Solondz. Doesn't tell anybody. Just goes on Rays Radio and announces that it was a terrible idea to do that. Thank you. Duh. Putting a sign up in the outfield? What are we even doing here? So then fast forward to a couple of years later, and now we're talking about here to stay. Shovels in the ground. We're going to restore the historic gas plant district in St. Pete. The whole community is going to be revitalized. What happened to the only way baseball's staying here is going to be Montreal? What happened to that? That's what Matt and Brian told me right to my face. Now, I don't even know if I can blame them, because either they're vouching for Stu and speaking for him, or they weren't privy to those conversations. That's neither here nor there. But the fact that those things were said tells you all you need to know about the situation. I don't care if it was a bluff. I don't care if it was real. I don't care if it was fake. That is just another one of those things in the middle of this entire story that just smelled so nasty. And for those people that were out there this entire time never believing Stu, they're going to be proven right. I think there's a lot of people out there that were looking at this situation with Stu Sternberg and the Rays, and it's just ambivalence. It's just apathy. Like, here we go again. Just another saga, just another chapter in this story where everybody's going to be looking at the Tampa Bay area and their baseball team and mocking us. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame that Stu Sternberg's tenure with the Tampa Bay Rays has clouded this area when it comes to baseball. Because you look at the rich tradition of baseball here in Tampa Bay. Okay, look at it this weekend. The Saladino tournament starts this weekend. Some of the best high school baseball that you're going to see in the country. And you know the names that have played in Saladino. You know Wade Boggs and Fred McGriff and Tino Martinez and Luis Gonzalez and Lance McCullers and Kyle Tucker. All these different names, and Sean Figgins, and just all these different guys from the Tampa Bay area, the Gary Sheffield, the Dwight Goodens, they all played in Saladino. This is a baseball hotbed. This is one of the best cities in the entire world for baseball. Forget the country, in the world. This is where baseball lives. Tampa is a home for baseball. That's just in the prep side of it. What about the college side? I'm going to be on the call this weekend for USF in Maryland. We got a D1 baseball team. We have the best Division II baseball team in the country. There is so much good baseball here in the Tampa Bay area. And people look down on Tampa Bay because of what the Rays have represented because of their owner. Not because of what has happened on the field, but because of their owner. Everybody looks at the Rays like the little engine that could. Wow, they're doing this in spite of having a low payroll. Well, okay. What if they had a guy at the helm that was willing to go over $100 million? Oh my God, a payroll over $100 million. Imagine that. Because I am telling you right now, baseball 1,000,000% can work in the Tampa Bay area. No doubt about it in my mind. I've been there. This isn't media Jay Recher talking. This is baseball coach Jay Recher talking. I've traveled all around the state, and I've seen thousands and thousands of kids and families around the state at baseball fields. They want to be here. They want to be in the Tampa Bay area supporting the Rays. But if your team is, if there's an apathy, if there's a, we don't know, there's probably other things, they're going to go do something else. Don't tell me hockey can work here and baseball don't. Because it's not just the 81 games. The Lightning do anything. They do a live recording of the block party at a bar across the street from Emily. That thing gets packed every single time. You go to a watch party. You go to any of these things that the Tampa Bay Lightning do. You look at how many people travel. How many people travel across the world to go to Lightning games? Bolts Nation is everywhere. How does that happen? Because they know by giving an absolute crap about their team and investing time, money, and energy, if they do it, you're going to do it. They don't leave anything to be unturned. They don't leave anything to just be, all right, well, do the Lightning really care about our community? Nobody has to question that. Not one bit. But for the Rays, year after year after year, trying to help them, trying to help people in the community, support this team. It's just, my goodness. Again, I feel so bad for the people that work inside the organization. I feel bad for the players and the coaches. They shouldn't have to be answering questions about this shit. Really? What are we doing? Again, if you're just joining us, the statement again from the Rays, I'll read it one more time. Opening day right around the corner. We're eager and prepared for what promises to be an exciting and fun season of baseball. Thanks to our dedicated staff and players, our fans will experience the game in one of the most intimate settings in modern baseball history. As we all recover from impacts of the hurricanes, we are incredibly grateful for the support from our fans and the wider Tampa Bay community. We're especially appreciative of how our corporate partners have stepped up during this challenging time for our organization. Now for the real stuff. That was fluff, those first two paragraphs. After careful deliberation, we have concluded we cannot move forward with the new ballpark and development project at this moment. The series of events beginning in October that no one could have anticipated led to this difficult decision. Our commitment to the vitality and success of the Rays organization is unwavering. We continue to focus on finding a ballpark solution that serves the best interest of our region, Major League Baseball, and our organization. The city of St. Petersburg is currently advancing plans to restore Tropicana Field. For the 2026 season, we are thankful for their efforts and are excited to return our home field next spring. After you listen to that for the second time here on the podcast, I mean, do you buy any of it? Do you buy any of that stuff? Do you really think Stu cares about the Tampa Bay Rays fan? You can say he does. But I mean, who's saying that still right now? Who is anybody on Stu's side? Is anybody looking at Stu Sternberg right now as a sympathetic figure? Go look at how much he's worth. Go look at what his net value is. Most of us will never see that money in our lifetime. So we're supposed to feel bad for this guy? A lack of transparency on this entire deal with the county commissioners, the city council now being told by Stu himself that they're not going to be able to meet that March 31st deadline 18 days before they were supposed to show that they had the money. They had a person, an independent person involved in this entire situation, saying that it wasn't going to cost that much money. It was going to cost some, but it wasn't going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars because there was that delay because of the storm. And when they wanted all of this money and everybody said, all right, well, show me where you're getting these figures from, Stu. Crickets. Silence. Nothing. Why would you ever want to go into business with somebody if they're not being transparent? If you feel there's any hint, just a little bit, of somebody being disingenuous. I have tried to give Stu the benefit of the doubt. I've tried to look at this entire situation with the Rays over the last decade and said, all right, well, he isn't Finnick, all right? And I don't really like some of the things he said, but he's the owner. You can't fire the owner. So how can we make the best of a bad situation? But it just got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. And it culminates with this announcement today, about 22 minutes ago. And if there were any other people hanging on to Stu Sternberg being a saving grace, being a guy that was going to really, really change the trajectory of this franchise from being a freaking bottom-feeding, revenue share-taking baseball team to one of the elite, one of the cream of the crop, that's gone. Even a little sliver of you out there that believe that Stu was maybe getting the shaft. Maybe we're being a little bit too hard on him. That is gone. And pretty soon he will be too. Isn't it crazy too? I want to go back to this. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Two guys kind of on the opposite sides of the spectrum here, and we've had them both on the show. We've had Chris Laval on, Pinellas County Commissioner, who's been very active on Twitter the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? Chris has joined the show, and I'm so grateful to have gotten to know him and to hear his side of everything. And he has been very vocal in his displeasure with how the Tampa Bay Times has covered this situation. So, and specifically John Romano. We've had both those guys on the show. And if you go back and you watch those interviews with Chris Lavala and with John Romano, what did they both say? These are guys that have been disagreeing for a while. Probably Chris more disagreeing with the job of the Times rather than vice versa. But what did both of those guys say? Right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Like and subscribe. They said that this ends with Stu Sternberg selling the race. Chris thought it would be a shorter time frame. John thought it would be a longer time frame. But you don't get this far down the road and don't sell the team. And it's just sad. It's sad that things like this have to happen. It's sad that we have to talk about things. I want to talk about Coach Jose Fernandez and the USF women's basketball team. Congratulations on winning the American Athletic Conference Championship. They're going dancing, baby. Cannot wait for that. Congratulations to Coach Jose and the whole crew. But this is a huge, huge story here in the Tampa Bay area. Isn't it crazy, though? Isn't it crazy that we're not surprised? Is anybody surprised by this? I feel like you meet certain people in life, and you can agree or you can disagree with them. But then there's also those people that you agree or disagree, but you respect or you don't respect, you trust or you don't trust. And Stu Sternberg is a perfect example of that. Because I got to be honest with you, every time I spoke to Stu, I actually liked him. I didn't hate talking to him. I didn't like some of his answers, but he wasn't like the worst person in the world. He wasn't like transparently over the top, like, evil. I didn't like what he said. So I didn't dislike the guy, but I sure as hell didn't trust him. I'd much rather deal with somebody that I may not like, but I can trust him. I know he's going to be upfront in my face, telling me what I like or don't like. But Stu is one of those guys that when you were done talking with him, you were just like, something's off. Do you remember before I got really sick? Before I got really sick the other day, on Tuesday, I had Rondé Barber and I had, who else did I have? Rondé Barber and Freddie Coleman on the program. And when those guys hopped off air, what happened? I was smiling ear to ear, sick as a dog. Sick as a dog. But those guys, when you're done speaking to them, you walk away and you're like, great dudes. Great dudes. Didn't have that feeling with a guy like Stu Sternberg, unfortunately. We have that same feeling with Tony Dungy. You have that same feeling with Derek Brooks. When you speak to those guys, when they're done, when they hop off the podcast, you're like, damn, I feel so much better about myself. It's kind of crazy how that whole situation works. People have that impact on you. Unfortunately, Stu is on the other end of the spectrum. Even if the conversation went well, even if you didn't hate the guy, when he walked away from the booth, you're like, don't know if I like or dislike the guy, but I sure as hell don't trust him for as long as I can throw him. And now we got to turn the page. Now it's the next chapter. What are we going to do when it comes to the race? And we're going to have to go back to these two groups that are out there that are investing or looking to build up the investors. And maybe we'll have some new owners for the race. because that's the next chapter in this saga. All right, let's bring him in. Greg Auman's going to join us from Fox Sports. What's going on, pal? How are you?
Good to see you, man. Good to be on.
What's your take before we get into football?
Right? Yeah. It's one of those where
race stuff.
Yeah, race stuff. No, I do think as kind of has the narrative has been going into today that there has to be a sale soon. It seems like all sides are pushing for it. I think that would help be a path towards a resolution. Certainly, baseball wants the race here in Tampa, or in the Tampa area, I should say. So that's the most encouraging thing with all this.
Yeah.
I can't remember how long it's been since any part of this St. Pete Stadium plan seemed like it was going to happen.
Right.
So I wouldn't even say there had really been hope. It was just the process of how they decided. It's kind of like a couple, is going to break up that hasn't done it yet. So now, again, what you hope is that there can either be a sale immediately or very soon, or I mean, again, I don't know if things would get so desperate or there would be a realization that ownership's not going to change. And then you have to put all your eggs in the basket of Tampa and Ybor and hoping that something can work out there. But like I said, I think the easiest resolution is to find a buyer, someone that lets Stu feel like he can walk away and have gotten what he needed or what he wanted from this. But disappointing all around.
Greg, there was a time, and I'm sure you remember this because you got a great memory, but there was something where you and I were together, I think at 3 different places, I think in the same day or 2 days, where it was like Bucks, Bolts, Rays. And I was like, right. Jesus, this is like when you were with the Times.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus, Greg, I thought I was, and you were like, running into the press box. And it's like the Rays, man, you look at all these other, obviously NFL's king. We know what Jeffrey Vinnick's been able to do with the Lightning. But Greg, you see this. I mean, your kids have played sports. Like there are baseball fans everywhere. I coached for 10 years. There's baseball all around this state. And to think that this team still has trouble. And I know there's a lot of people from all around the country, right? But you could say that about hockey too. I mean, we see how many visitors come into town, right? When the Toronto's here or Chicago's here, Detroit's here. It's just part of the gig of living in Tampa. But for baseball to be such an apathetic thing where people are just like, yeah, I'll go if I want. Like, this is a huge missed opportunity. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's neat. I literally was there for 1 inning, but I was at the Yankees spring training game when Bowles threw out the first pitch. And it's such a cool thing the first time you're in a ballpark and you realize, hey, baseball's back. Even if it's just spring training, some split squad game.
Right.
Or the first time you get in your car and you hear Rays on the radio. And I love that. I can drive forever if there's a ball. Okay. It's the best kind of something's going on in the background. I don't mind talk radio at all. I don't mind FM radio, but my attention is always kind of captivated. And hockey's probably the same way when you hear about Michigan driving tonight or something. So yeah, like I don't even want to think about the idea of they're not. I've been here in Tampa since '99, so the Rays have been here. It's all I've known as this market having baseball. So the idea of that not being there, you think about St. Louis in football and Oakland now in baseball and football and basketball, I guess, as well. But these cities that lose teams, you're just heartbroken for because it's such a seminal part of living in a city. If you're a sports fan, is having that connection, whether you like them or hate them, you have that connection to the sports team in town.
Right.
So I'm not a big proponent of ponying up hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to keep it going, but you certainly wish that they could find a solution and find a combination of public and private funding to keep the team here and to keep that a part of living in Tampa Bay. That's probably where it starts.
Yeah, 1,000%. All right, let's talk some football, NFL free agency, and the big news. Did the Bucs sign a linebacker today? Look out. I tweeted out before. I know you'd appreciate this. This is the part of free agency where everybody is so excited about a backup or a special teams player that got signed, and everybody acts like they've heard of the guy before, but they never have, and they think it's the world's greatest signing for their team. Tell us about the new linebacker for the Bucs that's going to replace KJ Britt.
Yeah, new linebacker and a new corner, both this morning. So, the new linebacker's name is Anthony Walker. A couple years with the Browns. Was with Miami last year. Basically, he and KJ Britt are both Rosenhaus guys, and it kind of seems like both of them could do well with just a fresh start somewhere. and they kind of switch. I don't know that there's a scenario where, just as KJ Britt kind of fell out of favor at the end of last year, I don't know if there's a solution where Anthony Walker is a starting linebacker here by choice.
Right.
I would think he comes in behind Servastia Dennis, probably behind a rookie as well. But no, a guy that has been in the league, has started before. Again, didn't have a great year last year, a lot like KJ Britt. So I would just think of him as KJ went to the Dolphins. He takes KJ's spot as someone who can step up and play if necessary at linebacker, but is probably not by design a starting linebacker here.
And then the corner, Mr. Kendall
Kildor. No, not Vildor.
Kendall Vildor.
Kendall Vildor. Trying to get the accent right in the second last name, and I got
he sounds like a movie villain. Kendall
Vildor. I
Yes.
will not accept your demands. Yeah, so Kendall, I actually traded a couple messages with Kendall this morning.
Oh, nice.
Kendall's guy was in Detroit. If you Google him, the thing you're going to find is Brock Purdy throwing a deep ball that clangs off of his helmet and is caught by Brandon Ayuk for a touchdown. So that's what Detroit people remember about him. That's probably why they're kind of okay with him being gone. What he should be is Tavierre Thomas. The Bucs lost Tavierre Thomas to the Vikings. Tavierre was a big special teams guy, had 2 blocks last year. Vildor, to say it correctly, I think had 220 snaps on special teams for Detroit last year. Kind of got pressed into duty because they had a lot of injuries in their secondary. But in the grand scheme of things, he's probably like a 4th corner and a special teams guy here.
Okay. And then we also see Kyle Trask coming back, and you did some great investigative research there with this is Mike Greenberg just doing some incredible bookkeeping again. And just take us through that situation on how they were able to bring him back and if it surprised you at all, because I wondered if Kyle Trask was going to be able to go out and possibly fight for a starting job somewhere. I know some people thought maybe a place like Indianapolis would be a spot, but obviously we know that that's not going to happen now with Anthony Richardson in the big time battle of his life now. So what do you think about the whole Kyle Trask situation?
Yeah, a little surprised he's back, honestly. Obviously, Kyle, to know it's not his fault, but just got stuck behind 2 really durable quarterbacks that won't come off the field. So there's not many teams you can go to where the number 2 quarterback really had no meaningful snaps for 4 years.
Right.
It's you knock on wood if you're a Bucs fan, I'm sure. But I was surprised. And I had thought, again, Kyle's had his share of waiting and being a backup throughout his career. I really thought he would seek a place where, to be frank, they had a crappier quarterback, okay?
Right.
Where even if the team situation isn't great, just one where either a rookie's not ready, let's put Trask in, the starter threw 3 picks, okay, let's give someone else a try. I thought he needed that because right now he's in that role where if Baker doesn't get hurt, you forget that he exists. So the idea that it's been 4 years here, and however many passes, not many passes at all,
Right.
I think that tells me that he probably didn't have a lot of interest or a lot of good opportunities anywhere else. Because I get that he's living in Tampa for 4 years, getting married. Absolutely, the stability of living in the same city, close to where you went to college, all those kind of things. That's all great from a football standpoint, especially with the new offensive coordinator. There's not even continuity of being in the same offense here. So my thoughts going into Trask in this offseason were 3 teams in that. Go to Jacksonville, where Liam Cohen, and they went with Nick Mullins. Carolina, where he had a year with Canales, they brought back Andy Dalton, who certainly serves a good purpose there as a veteran mentor to what they have in Bryce Young. And honestly, I thought Washington was a possibility.
Okay.
Brian Johnson, the quarterbacks coach there. The 3 years that Trask went off in Gainesville, Brian Johnson was his coach there. So I thought there was maybe a window where if Mariota didn't come back or if Mariota was too expensive, they'd turn to him. And that's a really inexperienced 1-2 at quarterback, if you will. But I thought that was viable. So once Mariota came off the board yesterday, I was like, wow, I wonder if he comes back. And it's not going to be a ton of money. It's under $3 million, which is cheap by NFL backup quarterback standards. It only counts about $1.3 million against the cap because the Bucs had that cool salary cap loophole they're using. So yeah, it's one of those where he's back. It's kind of more of the same. If something happens where they have a quarterback injury, I think they trust him immensely, but it's not because he's done anything meaningful in the last 4 years.
And I wonder too, because you have Pratt there as well. So
Right.
is Kyle Trask? I'm looking around the league, right? Injury. Kyle Trask, one of those guys? Is he on that short list that people will ring up the Bucs and try to give him a chance? Right? Is that too far fetched?
Like if it were August and an NFL starter got hurt,
Right.
I think you could see. I don't know. The Trask is going to merit some high draft pick,
Right.
but I think the Bucs like Michael Pratt enough and would be okay with him as a 2. Again, less experienced than Trask, but they're kind of both almost starting from scratch as playing experience goes. So if a team lost a quarterback and wanted to, how you kind of can get teams where they'll give you a 6th round pick for something they wouldn't ordinarily care about. I could see that happen. It's kind of like what the Eagles just did with Kenny Pickett. Eagles like Tanner McKee, so they're okay trading Kenny Pickett to Cleveland to get a 5th round pick. It's one of those where, again, there's a world where something happens and Trask has 10 starts this year. And there's other ones where he might not dress and Pratt might be the 2. So, he's probably closer to 3 than he is to 1 right now is the problem.
Yeah, it's a good point. A lot of people are asking about CJ Mosley because of that linebacker position, a veteran, right? He's been around this league. What are the chances the Bucs bring in? Because it seems like all the free agents that they're going to bring in from here on out are going to be more of the, the low salary guys, backup special teamers, and then fill everything else in with, the guys in the draft or undrafted free agents. Is there any more wiggle room? Because we do know, and you brought this up, there's going to be some restructuring here very soon. It'll be announced. They gotta do something. And you said Wirfs and Winfield, right? Those are the 2 guys that'll be restructured.
Yeah, Wirfs and Winfield get you like $35 million, which covers everything they've done and probably gives you $15 million to kind of have operational expenses and stuff like that. There's other guys they can restructure they want to, but those are the 2 logical, easy. They've got long contracts where it's the money you save this year gets spread out over 4 or 5 years, which is nice. As it relates to CJ Mosley, he turns 33 this summer. And what I would tell you is that if you have a 33-year-old linebacker on the field, you don't want him to be the young guy of the 2.
True.
So we've seen what Lavonte David has done to be absolutely ageless and timeless and to play at a high level at an age where very few linebackers do. It's probably putting a little too many eggs in that basket to try and do it twice and to lean on a 33-year-old and a 35-year-old. Leadership, captain, brings all those things. I think right now to see what they did to bring in Walker today, it seems to line up like I think it'll be David, a rookie, Dennis, and those 2 could be kind of interchangeable, but those should be your top 3. And then you're looking at Anthony Walker might be the 4. If they bring J.J. Russell back, he's the 5. You got Deion Jones in there. He could be a serviceable backup linebacker as well. I would think that's a position you want to get young at, and the best way to find a starter is to put a 1st or a 2nd round draft pick into an inside linebacker next month.
I want to ask you about that in a second, but I want to go back to something I was just thinking about when it comes to these positions that the Buccaneers are looking at, right? And looking at getting Lavonte David in there and the linebacker, and you want to get young, right? I mean, that's the big thing is like in certain spots, they got to get legs. And I think at the linebacker spot, that's something we have to certainly be cognizant of. And kind of, I guess, going into the draft pick discussion, because they brought in Hassan Reddick, do you think that, I don't want to say eliminates them from going to get an edge, but does that make it kind of lean? Maybe if you had the choice between an edge and an inside linebacker, do you lean maybe towards the inside linebacker position?
Yeah. It could be. I mean, there's definitely now a much more pressing need at inside linebacker. Okay. To me, if you put a high draft, if the right edge fell to them at 19, if there's a guy you thought was going to be, if Jalen Walker, who you thought was going to be gone at 10, is there at 19, it wouldn't surprise me at all. You can't overstock your edge rusher room. Okay. You want to have as much talent there as possible. But I do think if you put a high draft pick into the position the same year you get Hassan Reddick, you're now actively stifling Chris Braswell is the problem. Yeah. You put a 2nd round pick in him last year. They like him. They believe in him. So for them to suddenly like a guy that much more that you say, okay, we're okay with Braswell being the 5th edge, where you're barely on the roster, you're barely dressing, you're essentially a special teams player. I don't think they would do that by design. It would only be a situation where somebody completely falls to them they would not expect. Jahad Campbell's off the board at 19, and one of these top 4 edges that we all think is gone by Atlanta at 15 is still there at 19, then hey, maybe. And you just kind of have depth at one spot and a little bit less. And now you can put a second round pick into a linebacker and still address it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think, like I said, I don't think they want to hamstring Chris Braswell's development by taking a higher asset and putting it in front of him.
So corner, I guess, is another spot too, right?
Corner
Corner is
sense.
like, because I've always said that I think you have to be very weary of the positions where there's numbers attached to them, whether it's rotational or whether it just depends on your scheme. So whether it's a wide receiver, right? Because sometimes Mike and Chris are out there, sometimes they're not out there. Your defensive line, you're going to get your rotations. We've seen it in years past where it was like, hey, look, Vita's not out there. It's Nacho or it's Greg Gaines, who's also coming back. And then corner, where sometimes you play with 2, sometimes you play with 4 or 5. I think that cornerback position is going to be key for this team. And I think you and I have spoken about this before of like, Todd loves his guy, his type of corner. But I wonder, does he change his perspective of the type of corner he brings in? Because, yeah, those guys are bigger and they can tackle in space, so they can do some of the things like that. But you're also usually playing some soft coverage, giving up a lot underneath, and they don't pick off the ball very much. So I understand that he has a type, but he probably has to adjust his type a little bit if he wants to try to get more turnovers on the back end. We know Todd wants to do that.
Yeah, corner's tricky in that, like, everybody has wanted Jamel Dean to be cut by now. And I don't think there's no reason for the Bucs to cut or trade Jamel Dean until they have a replacement in place. You just don't take away a starter unless there's somebody you at least would be cool with stepping up. And the Bucs really don't have that at corner. Bryce Hall would have been that guy a year ago.
Isn't it the same thing? Sorry, Greg. Isn't it the same thing with Devin White and Rashad White? Because, like, as soon as Bucky started overtaking Rashad White, everybody was like, well, let's see if we can trade Rashad. It's like, whoa. Yeah. You don't want to trade him. And even Devin White, like, towards the end of his career when KJ Britt took over, it was like, just get rid of Devin White. It was like, if KJ goes down, like, you know what I mean? You don't want to start getting rid of players because that's when your depth gets challenged quick.
Right. Absolutely. And this is a team, again, you want to be able to insulate yourself against a single injury to where if this guy goes down, there's still a guy behind him you feel pretty good about. 2 injuries at just about any position, you're going to be scrambling. But so like Rashad, people are like, oh, why are you paying Rashad $3 million to be back at running back? It's because Bucky can get hurt. And if Bucky goes down, you like Sean Tucker. You don't want Sean Tucker to be getting 70% of the snaps probably. So, it's just smart depth. It's like the fact that if we think about the corner they got of Vildor today, as replacing Tavier Thomas, he's not even really on the radar defensively. That's really a special teams hire. So they not only have to, you want to either bring Bryce Hall back and hope that he's healthy or replace him with somebody in kind. There's still some good, again, everybody wanted A-list corners. They're not going to go out and spend $18 million on somebody right now. So they got to pay Zion McCollum here in the next year. But I do think there's a medium ground, a middle ground where a guy like Rasul Douglas. Okay, Rasul Douglas hasn't signed in this initial wave, so his numbers going down. I think he wanted to go to Green Bay. Green Bay went another direction at corner and paid somebody well, so that's off the table now. So I think he's one guy who, again, ball hawk, long, lanky. Yeah. He would make sense. And I don't know if he comes in and Jamel goes out or if they keep them both. And now all of a sudden, maybe corner isn't such a big need, Corner is probably a position you need to put a high draft pick into, regardless of whether you need a corner or not. You think about the Eagles. Okay, the Eagles did so well this year. They had Bradbury, they had Slay. They still put their first 2 picks into corners, and won a Super Bowl with 2 rookies out there. Okay, and you've still got Slay back there if you need him. But if you want to lean on the rookie, you can. So I think that's a window where you could see that. Where this year Dean's still there. There's a first or a second round pick that once he's ready, they want to hand the keys to. Okay. But you want to have that veteran to be there to kind of hold things until he's ready. So like I said, I understand why they haven't done anything with Jamel Dean. I wouldn't rule out a mid-tier veteran signing. That would be smart for them. They're not done. Just because they're hitting on the bottom 10 of the roster with special teams linebackers and special teams corners, it doesn't mean they're done with addressing bigger needs, and the draft will help with that too.
So the Bucs aren't done in free agency, you're saying, you think?
I don't think so. If you look, it's 6 guys they've re-signed. Yeah. It's 4 guys they've brought in. None of the ones they brought in except for Reddick are big dollar guys at all. So I think it's very possible they're at the 1-year contract level of free agency where everybody comes in and it's a 1-year prove it deal. That's kind of what their model has been last couple of years. But I do think that can get an impact guy if they don't bring Justin School back. Okay, they've got to get a tackle they trust to step in and be a starter when the other tackle gets home. I don't think that guy's on their roster right now. So I mean, it's kind of like if you don't sign somebody you thought you might re-sign, then you have to find a replacement, and that's probably where they are. I don't know if they're aggressively chasing corner, tight end. There's lots of positions they can go to. The draft is, I mean, you have 6 draft picks. Realistically, you're going to get about 4 starters out of those 6. There's lots of other needs they have and ability and places they want to upgrade. So they're not done. They might be done with the big flashy $10 million guys, but they're not done.
Yeah, you say 4 out of 6. You know what, Jason Light? It could be 6 out of 6. He could have a couple of undrafted free agents that start too.
Right?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Servassier Dennis. So I remember last year, Todd said something, and they were talking about him, and it was a very vague answer, and it stood out to me. Same way that when Liam Cohen said early last year about the 3 running back system, there's sometimes these things stick in my brain. And the way that Todd spoke about Servassier Dennis, it was a very weird, all right, well, he's not going to be available this season. And it didn't sound, because usually a guy gets hurt almost like Chris Godwin gets hurt, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, he's going to be training all of a sudden, so he'll be ready for next year. I didn't really get that same sense from Todd when speaking about Servassier Dennis. Almost like it was, I don't want to say it was an injury that's going to end his career, but something that possibly was going to affect him. Do you remember that at all? And
I don't. And honestly, Jay, honestly, it's one of those where, I mean, my understanding was that Dennis would be good for OTAs. I mean, I think what he had done with his shoulder was something that had bothered him going back to college.
Maybe that's what it was. So they're thinking that if they that they took care of it in the offseason, it's not going to be an issue anymore.
I do. I think, again, I can't say I've had specific conversations about this, but I do think they have every expectation he won't be limited by injury. He's definitely been someone who's been setback, who's hurt himself by being injured much of the 2 years he's been here. But I don't think it's anything where he starts with that shoulder acts up again or something. No, I think they have high expectations for him. To where, again, even if you draft a rookie, I think they're excited about Servassier Dennis at least having some kind of situational role in passing situations as part of a sub package. If you go back to Detroit, you go back to the first month of the season, he was coming on. I mean, he was definitely somebody that, for all the issues they had with the middle of the field for the last 3 months of the season, with guys being wide open, with Britt not being fast enough to be on the field every down, Dennis solved those problems. Dennis would have been the answer. They just lost him to a season-ending injury. So all they can do is get him ready and hope that he's healthier in 25. But he's somebody they like and are excited about.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait to see him out there, and hopefully he can stay healthy for the majority of the season. And, I would be remiss if I didn't mention before I let you go, Joe Tryon moving on to the Cleveland Browns. It just didn't work out here for the Bucs, man. Every year he was the sexy pick for 10-plus sacks, and it never came to fruition, Greg.
Yeah, and Joe, honestly, I mean, nice guy. It's one of those where, honestly, you look back and it's one of those where it's not his fault he's a first-round draft pick, Joe is a guy, you look at that 21 edge class, it is not a good edge class, okay? There's not, it's like you talk about Osai and some of these other guys that were mocked to the Bucs. There's not one where it's like, oh, they should have taken that guy. It's just they needed an edge rusher in a year that didn't really have a lot of edge rushers. I think Joe did a lot of things that don't get appreciated in terms of being able to fill a bunch of different roles. But again, if you're an edge picked in the first round, everybody wants double-digit sacks. They don't want 4 and 5 sacks. It's kind of like Anthony Nelson. Okay, Anthony Nelson, all he's ever been is a 5 or 6 sack guy. But because he came as a 4th-round draft pick, it's always been like, oh, wow, that's great. You're getting value from a 4th-round pick. He's in year 7 now. Has never been more than a 6 sack guy. But people love him because he came in with low expectations and he's always made good on them. He's come up with big plays. Sometimes you get really hurt by the expectation you come into the year with. So for Joe, I'm excited that he goes to Cleveland as just a guy in a $4 million contract. And if he gets 5 sacks for them this year, it's great. Rotational player helping out. It's a different perspective on things. And for Joe, it's probably good to reset himself and have a fresh start, where not everybody that sees him is disappointed by him and wants more from him. And instead, it's just a chance, hey, relax, play ball, go out there and make plays. Myles Garrett being on the other side is a nice problem to have in
For
terms of
sure.
he's not going to be catching anybody's priorities on offense, making sure they know where Joe is on the field at all times. So that helps. And again, if being the guy opposite Myles Garrett, and he's not the only guy they have opposite Myles Garrett, but if you on the other side of him, it's kind of like Greg Gaines. Greg Gaines got to line up next to Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
For his first 4 years in the league. That's going to help somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a world where, again, Joe has better opportunities. Joe gets to the quarterback a little more successfully, gets 9 sacks. Now he's making double as much for somebody else a year from now. He's probably the same guy he was here in Tampa. It's just things can change in a hurry.
You got that right, buddy. Greg Auman, Fox Sports, always breaking it down in the best way. Greg, I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week, pal. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Always happy to be on. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, buddy. Greg Auman, all over it, buddy. Go check him out at Greg Auman. He does such a great job. And again, I love that he works for Fox Sports. You know, he's with The Athletic too, but when he was with the Times, and I know it was a little bit of a pain in the butt for him, but you know, he sorry, but going through this too. Sorry, had to make sure that we get through something right here with the HOA stuff. All right, we're good. Wow, Greg's the best. So yeah, I miss him. I miss him being able to cover a little bit of everything and to see him all the different games. But I do see him at a lot of the Bucs games and the Bucs stuff. So good stuff there. Aaron Guillen's going to join us in a couple of minutes from the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Big matchup with them against Tulsa this weekend. I know a lot of people with the news that the Tampa Bay Rays not too happy with the organization and Stu Sternberg as a whole. If you just joined us, if you didn't know, the Rays deal with the Tampa Bay Times stuff in the background. They're not going to be going ahead with the deal for the new stadium. So even though they had all that public money, even though they had all those votes from the city and from the county, and they put together this whole pomp and circumstance. Shovel's going to be in the ground first quarter of 2025. At the end of the first quarter of 2025, that's what they told us. So it would have been by the end of this month. It never happened. It never happened. So now where do the Rays go from here? They play this year out. I mean, how crazy would it be if the Rays won the World Series this year? Like, what if they won the World Series this year, not knowing where their home was going to be in a couple of years, playing at Steinbrenner Field? Just nuts, man. That's freaking nuts. I don't know, man. Pretty wild. But again, shout out to USF women's basketball for winning the American Athletic Conference Championship last night. The tournament finished up there in Fort Worth. They beat Rice 69-62. I was not feeling great again last night, but I hopped on the call, asked Coach Jose a couple of questions, and then got my happy ass back to bed. You know how bad it was for me. I was so sick Tuesday after the show, and you guys could hear it. You can still hear it in my voice a little bit, but towards the end of the show on Tuesday, I was feeling it. I was going to go to the Chris Godwin press conference, and usually you have to like contact the Bucs and let them know like if you're coming or not when it's off-season stuff. I think it's just like a courtesy type of thing. Like they know people are going to show up for a Chris Godwin press conference with Jason Light. And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And then right after I got off air, it took me like 5 minutes, and I emailed back like, guys, I don't feel good. I do not feel well, and I got to go. I cannot show up, and I want to get anybody else banged up. So they were like, okay. And then I was in bed. I didn't watch USF. I didn't watch Lightning Tuesday night. Nothing. I was dead to the world all day Tuesday and pretty much all day yesterday until last night. But I'm back here ready to go. Yeah, and excited for what the next couple of days hold. I'll be on the call for USF in Maryland this weekend on ESPN Plus Friday and Saturday, on Bulls Unlimited on Sunday. I know there's a lot of great games going on here in the Tampa Bay area. I know the guys just got underway, USF men. Let me pull up the score for you real quick. They are losing 24-14 to Wichita State, 8:07 left to go in the first. So I'll keep you abreast off of that situation. Nelly says the Pendingos went down last night. Softball, no bueno either. And then a crazy ending to the Madrid match yesterday between Atletico and Real Madrid, where they said that Julian Alvarez touched the ball twice on his PK. I still haven't seen it. Real moves on again. It seems like Atleti has a really tough time of beating them guys in the Champions League. And speaking of footy, we're going to bring him in, El Capitan, the one and only Aaron Guillen. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing good, buddy. Thank you. And I was just talking to somebody the other day. I think you were the first Rowdies guy that I ever interviewed when you came back into their old radio station back in the day. And I was just like, man, Aaron's the best, bro. He's such a nice guy, so calm. Oh, yeah. And I go to a game, and then you are going, bro, I've asked Coach Neil about this, Coach Robbie about this, Leo, Forrest. Bro, you play with the fire out there, buddy. I mean, it just seems like as soon as you cross that line, no more Mr. Nice Guy, Aaron Guillen comes to play. Like, what is there a switch that gets flipped? Like, what is that all about? I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, that's something that I have actually gotten a lot better since playing professional. So that tells you a little bit more about me when I used to play in college. But yeah, I mean, it's just a passion that I like to play. And obviously there's points on the line and just want to get better every day. So that's just something I like to do every time, even when we're training as well.
How important is it to you to wear that armband as a captain? It's such a storied franchise like the Rowdies.
Yeah, I mean, I always say it's a privilege, first of all, to be able to play for the Rowdies and to have that responsibility of wearing the armband and leading the guys out there. It's amazing. And obviously we have a lot of leaders on the team, but just leading that group, it's an amazing feeling for me to do it on my second season already.
I was just having this conversation with Forrest last week about, I call you guys like the kind of the core four guys that have been here for so long with you, Forrest, Lewis, and Leo. I mean, how important is it to have each other to kind of bounce ideas off of and know that it's, even though you're wearing the armband, it's not just you that is taking on the leadership duties?
Yeah, no, it's super important. We all know what the club means to us. We've been, like you said, we've been here for a long time, and we know what is expected from the club. So we try to replicate that on the field and just pull the guys, the new guys, and even the returning players to do our best every day that we're out here and represent the Rowdies the way they're supposed to be represented.
I was so excited for the game last week against Las Vegas. Unfortunately, you guys weren't able to pull out the win. It was just kind of a funky play there to give up the goal. But, man, you want to talk about – that was a goal that came against the run of play. On the road, first game, I thought you guys played fantastic. Unfortunately, no goals to show for it. But what's the message after that game from whether it was the coach or whether it's the team? Because, you know, it's just the first game of the year. Obviously, you're starting the first couple of games on the road. But I felt like, as mad as I was that you guys didn't win, I was just like, man, if you play like that, you guys are going to be in good shape this season. How did you guys feel after that one?
Yeah, honestly, the feeling is mutual. No one wants to lose. I think we lost the opportunity to get some points on the road because, like you said, I believe that we outplayed Vegas, but obviously the score didn't go our way. But I think we need to find a way to get points on the road against these teams because obviously we dominated, so we know we deserve it, but it's a game of football, and anything could happen. But we need to find the way to if we don't win that game, at least to bring a point back home.
Yeah, exactly. And what is that like when you saw the schedule, knowing that you're going to start the games on the road? Obviously a game coming up this weekend in Tulsa, but is that mindset changed to start the season because you're on the road?
No, I think at the end of the day, we're gonna go on the road regardless, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what the schedule is planned for us, and we need to get back to Lang as soon as possible. Obviously, we all want to be there, and the fans wants us to be back, but it's just the circumstances we're in, and I think we need to do the best that we can, and then take advantage of the home games we have in a row here.
Aaron, I can't wait to be back at Lang to watch you guys do your thing. What was that like last year, man, with the storms and everybody getting displaced, and then you guys having to play your games on the road? It was wild. It was wild. I mean, just even for us, like watching you guys playing, and it's just like we our hearts went out. You guys were playing your tails off. What was that like experiencing something like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a nice feeling for the community to suffer, first of all, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, soccer comes in second, in my opinion, but now that everything has recovered and we're on the way to, obviously the whole community hasn't recovered yet, but we're on the way for that, and our stadium is the one that took one of those hits, and hopefully we're back out there. So, but no, like I tell you, we have to adapt to all the circumstances and things that come at us. That's something that's out of our control, and we just do as best as we can. Just like the club did the best we could to find us a pitch to play here instead of going away. That's what we just need to adapt.
How long does it take for you guys? Because certain years you'll have a lot of turnover, certain years will have not a lot of turnover, but Cal's not with you guys anymore. Obviously you have Manu up front, but there are some new faces, right? You have Ali, you have some of these other guys. How long does it take for that chemistry to be built? Is that something that can be built before the season kicks off, or is that something where you have to kind of go through some games first to kind of realize like who's going to step forward and who's going to be able to do certain things at certain times?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a mismatch. Obviously, all the players that come in here have quality. You just got to start getting used to each other and know their tendencies, what they're good at, what they lack. But we did have a good preseason. We had 6 weeks of a preseason, and we have a pretty good group, and everyone gets along, so that helps on the pitch as well. So I think obviously with time in the season, going more games, we're going to get used to each other more and hopefully get better as a team and reach our goal, which is to win a championship, obviously.
I saw the social media posts from the Rowdies. I don't know. Did you see it? They were showing the picture of you, Lewis, Forrest, and Leo when you first joined the Rowdies to now. Your hair was so perfectly coiffed, like right here, bro. You had the David De Gea look, as I used to call it. Now the hair's growing out a little bit. You're getting a little flow. You got a little, soccer/hockey. Like times have changed. And then Forrest was all cut, and now obviously we know the mane that he's got. It's kind of crazy to see, the changes of the looks over the years, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, I looked at it and I was like, wow, that's a complete different change. But yeah, I think speaking for myself, I needed a bit of a change. I had that same style for a long time, and I don't know, I got tired of it, and I was like, let's just let it grow and see what happens, and here we are.
How's everything at home? What's going on? What are you doing off the pitch? And obviously with the season going on right now, time at home is less and less and less, but what are you doing now to kind of relax once the season starts to make sure you kind of turn the brain off a little bit to kind of rest and recuperate?
Well, on my side, there's no turning off the brain. I have 2 jobs. I go home and I have to take care of the baby, which give my wife a little bit of a break. But no, it's fun. It's obviously it's just get home, take care of the baby, spend time with my wife and the family, and it's amazing. I love it. It's just my second job. It's the best thing.
I asked Forrest this. I want to ask you too, because I had this conversation years ago with a player on the Rays. I asked him because he had a baby, and I go, does it change your outlook on the game at all? And he goes, no, I don't think so. And then he came up to me like 2 weeks later, and he came up and he ran up and he grabbed my arm. He's like, Jay, I'm like, what? He's like, you were right. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're right. I went 0 for 4 last night, and I didn't care because I had the baby at home. Like it changed his perspective on, hey, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have great days. But when you go home and your baby looks up at you, they don't care. They don't care. They're just mad. They're just happy that dad is home. Has your perspective on the game and your profession playing for the Rowdies changed at all being a father?
Honestly, I think I've been a pretty light person when it comes to that throughout my career. Thinking about the result, I can't affect it anymore. So just moving on.
Right.
But I think having a kid at home and just being able to get home and have a different distraction and just not overthink, maybe you do relax a little bit more on that sense, but on the field, it's the same feeling. You want to win and you want to compete every single day you're in it, and you want to reach that goal, like I told you, to be a champion. And in order for that to happen, you got to show up every day here on training. But I think you do lose a little bit of, let's say, a little bit less stress going back home and knowing there's something else waiting, honestly, something bigger waiting at home, because it's a human being waiting for you, and all they want to do is play with you and smile at you. So it is nice to go home to.
Yeah, you could say that here, brother. I know some people are like, well, what do you mean he doesn't care about the game? Like, we know, bro, being a parent and your family's got to be number one at all times. I got this here, 2 stars above the crest, brother. What would that mean? I mean, I know me, like when I talk about it, I get like choked up thinking about it, because Jeff Attanella, one of my really good friends, he was, the guy that brought the 2nd star there. What would it mean to you guys, to you personally, to get a third star to win the USL championship, man? Because I know to me, like, I'll go crazy, man. I'm sure with you guys and all the blood, sweat, and tears you put into it, I mean, this is what you guys dream about.
Yeah, honestly, for me, I think we deserve it at this point, right? I've been here this is my 6th season. We've been so close twice, and we fell short. One of them we didn't play. The second one we fell short. But I think we deserve it, but Forrest, Lewis, myself, the guys that have been here, Leo the longest. I think we know what needs to happen and what the city needs and wants, and I think it's time for us to put the third one up there.
Yeah, I was at that game against Orange County, and I just remember walking out of the stadium and just shell shocked. Like, even to this day, like, I have a shirt from that game, and I have trouble wearing it because I'm like, I thought you guys had it, and it just happens sometimes, man. It's just, when you're not playing best of 3 or best of 5, you just got to be better on that one day. And they were, you just got to tip your hat and just try to keep going, try to get another opportunity to win it. What's the thing right now that you guys like? Do you guys talk smack about? So, like, with my teams that I played over the years, we talk smack about like our favorite football teams, our favorite baseball teams. Are there other like soccer teams like in Europe? Do you guys talk smack about the Premier League or La Liga or Ligue 1 or anybody? Like, what's the smack talk like with the team?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we make fun of Wazzy all the time because he brings different jerseys. Like, bro, you got to pick one team. But he brings United, Bayern, Chelsea, City. I'm like, all right, let's stick to one. And then the other one too, we play a fantasy league with the Prem, so we're involved in a group chat there and give each other some.
There you go. Who do you support? Like, who are your teams over in Europe?
Barcelona.
Barca all day, every day. No Madrid no Madrid for you, buddy.
No.
Did you watch any of that game yesterday?
Unfortunately, I did.
It's hotly contested battle between those two. But what do you like about Barca right now, man? It seems like that. I was looking at some things yesterday of, you got Robert Lewandowski there, and Rafinha has been just an absolute. I remember watching Rafinha at Leeds in the Premier League, and I'm like, this guy's going to Barcelona. Now he's one of the best wingers in the world. Like, Barcelona's got sometimes that magic dust that they sprinkle on these players, and all of a sudden they become world beaters. What do you like most about Barcelona right now?
I think what I like the most is how young they are. I mean, it's just the confidence that they're giving to these young guys, and they're just playing, and obviously they're being successful right now. Like I say, the most important for them is to get trophies at the end of the season. So we have to wait a couple months to see if they achieve that, but you have Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Rafinha, and then you have a lot of young guys, and then you have a lot of veterans as well, so that compensates, and obviously it's working for them right now, but let's see how it ends. Hopefully it ends with La Liga and the Champions League.
Yeah, Lamine Yamal, man. I mean, to see a guy it's hard not to compare him, and I know nobody's Messi, right? But it's hard not to compare him to Messi because the way he's able to just so delicately take these shots from outside the 18-yard box and just curve them in and bend them right in. He's just, the kid's mind is just on another level. Like, it is amazing to watch him do his thing. You mentioned getting trophies. Another trophy this year, you got the Jägermeister Cup to go with the U.S. Open Cup. How important is that to be able to get? Because I think that's something that gets lost here in America, where we focus so much on the league. But I mean, you go across the world and you win, the Copa del Rey, or you win, the FA Cup, or you win some of these other trophies, the Pokal. Like those, that's a big deal too. Like, you want to win, you want to achieve, and you want to attain that silverware. How great is it that you have pretty much 3 chances to get some silverware this year?
Yeah, I mean, we're always grateful to compete for other trophies as well. And I think it's a good opportunity to showcase that new tournament, which is us in the League One. So I think it's important to take the tournament serious, obviously, because it's the first year, and it would be nice to get the first trophy as well. But I think it's very important to just have different competitions and in different levels and leagues. And it's just soccer in America is growing so much, and I think it's good for the whole country.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm excited because I feel like when people go to a Rowdies game, they're hooked. And I know how exciting it is going to be for you Well, I ask you, like, how exciting is it going to be after all this time, after the storm, to finally get out there in front of Rouse Mob, to finally get out there in front of all the supporters? When you play that first game at Al Lang, how exciting is that going to be?
Yeah, I honestly think that's a question that we get asked the most. Every time we get interviewed or anything, that's the number one question. And it's something that, honestly, you can't really describe because we loved playing in front of our fans, and we know how great it is, just the venue in general. You have the water right next to the stadium. For me, it's one of the best stadiums in the league. So just to be able to be out there and compete again in front of our fans, I think it's going to mean the world for us. And I think we deserve to be back home.
Heck yeah, man. They're back in action this Saturday night, 8 p.m., FC Tulsa. You can watch all the games on Tampa Bay 44. And if not, I think the two games that aren't, I think they're on ESPN. They're on ESPN 2, which is great. I mean, the game June 25th against the Indy 11 on ESPN 2, and then Saturday, August 16th against Phoenix Rising on ESPN 2. Every other game on Tampa Bay 44 and pretty much ESPN Plus. First home game, April 12th against Loudoun United. You know I'll be there in attendance. And the guy that'll be leading the team onto the field, onto the pitch, our good buddy, Aaron Guillen. Aaron, always great catching up with you, my friend. So glad to see you back on the pitch with the boys. Good luck this Saturday. Stay healthy, and I'll see you at Outline in a couple weeks, my friend.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. The one and only Aaron Guillen. Love that guy, man. Such a great ambassador of Team Tampa Bay, leader of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Just an awesome guy. A fantastic player on the field who is just full of grit and desire and hunger. This guy puts everything forward. And just, even a better human being off of it. All right, let's get more. Let's go right here. Got that right, buddy. Let's talk more about the race thing. I'm gonna make sure that everybody knows we out here, baby. How great is that guy? Love that dude. The man. All right, hold on. Just put it on Twitter. So, if you're just joining us, the Rays announced today that via social media, they cannot move forward with the new ballpark and development project at this moment. And again, it's sad that we can't be surprised about this. It's sad that we look at this entire situation and go, yeah, duh. And listen, now is not the time to go out there and just, for those people, I think it's important to say this. For those people that were optimistic, for those people that thought that we were finally heading towards a resolution, that we are finally heading towards a new stadium and that baseball is here to stay for the next 3 decades. Today's not the day to shit on everybody. It's just not the time. Because you're going to get that. I told you so. That doesn't help anybody today. I told you so. I should have told you from the beginning. Don't believe Stu. Nobody likes that guy. Nobody likes I told you so guy, right? Raise your hand if you like I told you so guy. Not me. That guy's usually a douchebag. And you can find him pretty easy. This is a day where you look at Stu Sternberg and you look at the Rays and you go, all right, what's next? What's next? Because baseball is going to stay here. Somebody is going to step up. And we're going to do our best to get Joe Malloy on. And Joe Malloy has, from what I've been told, will join us on the program at some point. Hopefully it's when we get closer to the announcement that he's going to be part of that group of investors to buy the team. But people want to ask, like, who's Joe Malloy, right? I don't know if you guys remember this the other day. This is when Paul Russo, our good pal, joined the show. Joe Malloy, one of those two groups that are interested in buying the Rays. Here's what Paul had to say about Joe Malloy. But Paul, before I let you go, What kind of person is Joe Malloy? Because people are going to want to know. They're like, just right now, a lot of Rays fans, they're probably disillusioned with baseball ownership, and they may know the name, they may not know him as well, but just from your interaction, just for knowing him for over 4 decades, what kind of guy is Joe Malloy?
Well, personally, he's loving and caring.
Mhm.
You know, he was not only was he the general partner of the Yankees, but he was a school teacher. He dealt with kids for a lot of years, youth baseball coach. As a businessman, shrewd, you know, you have to be. But I could tell you, I love Joe. He's a great man. And, you know, I just think he could do a lot of great things for the Tampa Bay Rays or any other organization there is. You know, I would never, ever speak for Joe, ever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I would tell you that knowing Joe the way I've known him for the last 40 years, he's a Tampa guy, and I would suspect that he would hire Tampa people around him to bring the community closer. You know, I don't think you have to be from Tampa. You're not from Tampa. Everybody loves you here. You know what I mean? But he would know how to not only build the organization, but make it community friendly and make people fall in love with the Rays the way they do the Yankees.
So you heard it right there from Paulie. Guy that's known Joe Malloy for over 40 years. Making him more community friendly, hiring Tampa people, making it so that people will eventually love the Rays like they do the Yankees. And if you remember in the early 90s when George Steinbrenner was suspended from baseball, Joe Malloy was the guy that kind of was keeping it all together. And then a couple of years later, that's when they enjoyed success that we still haven't seen 25 years later in the game of baseball. That's the kind of guy that I want here in the Tampa Bay area. A lot of people made a lot of Stu Sternberg never being around, and he was in New York. That kind of stuff doesn't matter if you take care of everything else. That kind of stuff doesn't matter if people don't question your desire about keeping baseball in the Tampa Bay area. If they don't question your desire to do whatever it takes to put a winning product on the field. Does everybody know how many games Jeffrey Vinnick has gone to this year? I go to pretty much every Lightning game in Amalie Arena. You know how many times I've seen Jeffrey Vinnick this year? Not a lot. Does anybody care? No, because you can't question the desire of Jeffrey Vinnick. You can't question his commitment to the team, commitment to the community, commitment to winning. And the proof is in the pudding. One of the most successful franchises in the last decade. This is a team that wins every single freaking year. They go for it at the deadline. And Jeffrey Vinnick put these guys in place. It's Jeffrey Vinnick that put the right people in place. The Julian Brisebois, the Steve Eisermans, the John Coopers, all of Al Murray, the scouting director, all of these different people, Steve Griggs. You put the right people in place and you commit to the community and you commit to winning, sky's the limit. Now, of course, those people have to make the right decisions, but man, when you get the right guys, you're building a relationship with the community. You're building a relationship with the fan base that is going to last forever. As long as you live in the Tampa Bay area, if you are a Lightning fan, going through what we've gone through with this team winning and the boat parades are something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Think about it. What do we have when it comes to the race? We have game 162. And then we have the World Series in 2020, but that didn't happen in Tampa. So there's a little bit of a disconnect, right? We love what Randy Arozarena was able to do that postseason. We love what Brett Phillips was able to do with the walk-off and him doing the airplanes in the outfield. Those are two moments, but neither one of them had to do with winning a championship. We've got 2 Super Bowls. We've got 3 Stanley Cups. We have 0 World Series. If a new owner comes in here and commits to winning and commits to supporting people on both sides of the bay. Listen, as much as I would love it, and I think it would work better in Tampa, if the stadium stays in St. Pete, I still think it could work. You have to give people a reason to go. and a reason for these people that have this supplemental income. They have that extra $200, $500, $700. What am I going to do with this? Whether it's per week, per month, per year, whatever. You have to make it so they have to go to a Rays game. Not that they want to go to a Rays game. They have to go to a Rays game. My old roommate's not a sports fan. Not at all. Every single year, she has to go to a Lightning game. Why? Because it's not a baseball. It's not a game. It's an event. It's an experience. You walk away going, money well spent. You're not looking at your bank account going, damn, why did I just do that? You're looking up the schedule and trying to figure out when's the next time you can get back. That's what the Rays have to do. This entire situation when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, it's just sad. It's sad for our community because once again, like I said before, and I'll say it again right here, people are going to look down on baseball in the Tampa Bay area, and that's a crime. I think you have one of the best coaches in Division I in Mitch Hennis. He's doing some really good things over there from USF. I like what I see already. It's going to take some time. He's got to be able to get his own players in, but there's things that team is doing now that I haven't seen in a couple of years. We have the greatest Division II baseball coach of all time. That's not hyperbole. That's fact. Joe Urso is the man. You ever been to a game at UT? It's incredible. It's an exhilarating experience. You sit up get to the birdcage, go sit up top, and go watch a game and look at the Tampa skyline in the background. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. And then you look at the Saladino tournament that's happening this weekend. You look at all the great baseball that we have in the Tampa Bay area. Little leagues, travel ball, prep with the high school. We have great softball. We have a lot of great things going on in the Tampa Bay area. It's one of the best baseball hotbeds we have in the world. Yet this ownership crew has put us in a position where we are mocked. And there's vitriol. And people look down on the Bay Area. And I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I've been saying this for years. Rays fans don't deserve this shit. You don't. You don't deserve an owner telling you like, oh, I'm going to take a loss on my P&L, or, oh, I can only spend this much. Like, nobody's asking you to be the Yankees. Nobody's asking you to be the Mets. Nobody's asking you to be the Dodgers. But if you can't even get over $100 million when single players are making more than half of that, like, how do you expect to compete? And just because the Rays are the kings of finding gems and developing pitching and finding a way to use an equation to put this entire thing together to be competitive, it doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that we should accept that. I think that the Tampa Bay Rays should be fighting for World Series every year. Forget about being competitive. What are we talking about? Hey, let's just compete. I don't want that. Nobody wants the Bucs going into the 2025 season and just compete. You want to win a Super Bowl. Nobody's looking at this Tampa Bay Lightning team going, I hope they compete this year. No, we want another boat parade. You didn't make the deal to bring in Gord and Bjorkstrand to just compete in the Eastern Conference. We've lowered our expectations so much when it comes to the Rays, and it's weird. It's like Stockholm syndrome with people here in the Bay Area. It's like, oh, we're okay with just being mediocre, and we're just okay with exceeding expectations because we have a dirt payroll. Like, that's not normal. You don't accept that kind of stuff, man. Again, it doesn't have to be a $300 million payroll. Get something freaking competitive. It happens with the other two teams here. The Rowdies don't want to be competitive. They want to win. You got to change the script. You got to flip the script when it comes to the Rays. And I'm hoping that with a new owner in town, whatever group it may be, that it changes the point of view, it changes the perspective, and it changes the outlook on the Tampa Bay Rays in this area. Because it's over, man. It's over. hopefully with Stu going out the door, those type of low and mediocre expectations that we have for the MLB team in this city changes with it. Because again, we don't have that with the Bucks, and we sure as hell don't have that with the Lightning. And speaking of the Bolts, the Oos, the one Oos, Eddie in the yard. What's going on, bro? How are you?
What's going on, man? How we doing today?
Yeah, I was drinking. You ever have one of these, bro? Colombianas?
What is that? Let me see. I can't see it.
Colombiana?
No, I haven't had that before.
Bro, this is amazing drink, buddy. Amazing. Cola flavored soda, natural and artificial flavors. Got it from a food truck last night called La Fogada at Line Ball and Anderson, I think it was.
The Colombian food?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My girlfriend's Colombian.
Nice.
But Colombiana, this is like, you ever have Iron Brew? It's another soda. They taste the same. It's almost like a cream soda kind of thing. But Colombiana, I swear by these things. They're amazing.
All right, gente.
Hey, come on, bro. This ain't no Mickey Mouse out here, Papa. Before we talk some hockey, because you covered baseball for so long and, covering the Orioles. And you know me, like growing up in New York, so obviously I have a completely different perspective when it comes to like payroll and stuff like that. But I know you were you joined in while I was on my little diatribe there, but I'm just so sick of the woe is me. Baseball can thrive here. There's hundreds and thousands of people that are playing baseball, men's softball. Like people love baseball here, but for so long it's been like the little children and the little sisters of the poor here, and it's just crazy. And then when you see the news today, like Stu's like, yeah, we're not going to have the money. Like, yeah, okay, Stu, but today was just kind of that. That final line in the sand of like, we're not doing this.
Right.
And you've been covering baseball. What's your thoughts on the whole thing?
So Major League ownership it's a weird thing because, obviously, I actually covered those first Stu teams, when everyone loved him, right? Because he wasn't Vince Namoli.
Right. And
even though, in those teams, he inherited some pretty bad teams. He made one big decision by hiring Joe Madden. And yeah, I covered a couple of those first two Madden teams. And I remember hearing Joe in the office post game saying they're gonna get this right, they're gonna get this right, they're gonna get this right, and thinking this guy's crazy, right? And then obviously 2008 comes, and the bar was raised, and obviously the bar has kind of been there since then, but it's still been under circumstances of having a pretty low payroll and doing the same things that they do, which is like I think the unfortunate thing about Rays fans that have grown up in this area has been that you really can't have nice things very, very long, right. like what jersey do you pick? Because with the exception of Evan Longoria, what jersey does a kid pick when he's, right. 12 years old, because he knows that player is going to get traded.
How important is that, Ed? Because like you've been around, and I stress that level of importance, because I feel like it's all about what you're doing here, right? What you're putting your money down for. And it's not just the tickets, because when you have one of these bad boys, right? And that like, I don't want to buy. You've heard this, and I'm sure you have, because I know I have. I don't want to buy that jersey because I don't know if the guy's going to be on the team.
No, absolutely.
People even joke about it. Like every time I buy a jersey, the guy gets traded, right? Even just like on a smaller, like, kind of tongue in cheek kind of way. But there's a reality to that situation. And I think it's a microcosm of the lack of it's a perfect example of the lack of interest and the level of apathy that people have for the Rays. Because, all right, you know how many shirts I have for Randy Arozarena? You know how many things that I have down here? Like, I got Randy Arozarena here. I got Snellzilla right here for,
right.
You know what I mean? I have all these different things that I got when I worked at DAE for all these players that aren't even there anymore. So, there is something to that.
No, absolutely. And I think, I agree. It boggles my mind sometimes because, you and I both know how much this area loves baseball. And, like I covered high school sports, and, I've gotten to know, like you have, a lot of the guys who've grown up in this area who became major leaguers, who are big names, whether it's, Boggs or Tino or Fred or all those guys, like, and it's amazing because we have that salt of earth, interest in baseball here.
Right.
And it's amazing, but like you said, like, I think people want to embrace players, as much as they love teams, they want to embrace players, and, that's why we love Mike Evans so much. That's why we love that Chris Godwin's going to stay. That's why it hurts when Steven Stamkos leaves. That's why it hurts when, when Ryan McDonough left, and why it feels great when he came back. That's why we saw a standing ovation when Yanni Gord got that video tribute. As much as it's about the teams, it's about the players too. And I do think that a lot of fans, like a kid. I remember when I was a kid, I had my players, right, and I wanted to wear their numbers, but I was paying my my allowance or whatever I worked
right.
to get that jersey. Like nowadays jerseys cost $200. So I wasn't buying that stuff when I was a little kid, but I think that's where the interest, because the interest does start with the kids, and especially in a market like this one, which is to a very varying degree, people came from different places. There's not that many native Tampa Bay residents. A lot of people came from somewhere else because this is a great place to live, and they came, a lot of them with their parents or as themselves older, like they came with their own allegiances. That's why we still see a lot of Bruins fans in Amalie Arena, why we see Canadians fans, and some that's the Snowbirds too, but even now, like I'd love to see a day in wherever there's a baseball stadium, wherever it is, St. Pete, Tampa, hopefully it gets done, that you do hear, you don't hear the visiting fans anyway. And I'm from Baltimore, right? So I think it's kind of cool when I see down the right field, down the right field line behind the third base dugout, and it's nothing but orange, right? That's kind of cool, and the O and the anthem and stuff like that. But it would be nice to really have a something that people can really have ingrained and root for, and not have to worry about this whole discussion every 2-3 years. I think that's the thing, is like, I think if anyone's been here for 20 years, they're just frustrated with all this stuff. It's like, when is it going to be over? Like, I think I told you in the press box when it happened, I was like, until you see, shovels in the ground and foundations going up, you can't believe anything you believe in terms of a stadium deal here. And I guess the thing too is, like, how much do you care? How much do you really care about getting some stuff done here? And I honestly think, from the Rays' perspective, they really haven't cared enough to get this thing done, because over all the opportunities that they've had, whether it was Al Lang and the flaps and everything like that, to the Tampa and Eborts, to this deal here, like, come on, if you really cared, something would have had to have gotten done by now. I feel very passionate about it, because it's like, I love baseball. Baseball, as much as I love covering hockey, baseball is my first love, and I grew up in a market that loves baseball in Baltimore and lives and breathes with their team, whether they're good or bad. I covered an ownership with the Angelos family that wasn't a very easy one to deal with, and people wanted to run them out, and they weren't, like I said, they weren't easy to deal with. And obviously now they have a new ownership that people are really excited about. And the big question after that is like, okay, what's the payroll going to look like? What's the payroll going to look like?
Yeah.
That's obviously the big thing, but it's baseball is such an amazing game that, like, I refuse to settle for the whole fact of all the excuses of why it hasn't worked to the extent that it should work here. But it's just frustrating year after year hearing stadium deal talks, and then knowing that, like, until I see those lights go on, I'm not gonna believe it.
Until that first pitch is thrown, man, we ain't buying it. Yeah, and I'm with you. One of these days and I think Tampa's always going to be that city, man. It's always going to be very transit. You're always going to have a lot of people, and even though we do see those snowbirds, and even though we do see a lot of visiting fans, like, there's still a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning fans, man. There still is. And you still see Bolts Nation traveling on the road. And, last road trip that we saw, there was a bunch of Lightning fans. I was like, wow, man, you don't see that type of thing. You don't see Rays fans getting together and going on road trips. And if you do, it's like very sparse and very like little pockets here and there. And Bolts Nation, really, it has become, it's a thing unto itself.
Yeah. I think the Washington game, they had 300 Bolts for Life fans. Went up to that. Obviously DC is a nice place to go for a day or two, but they've done. That's one, I think, other than the community aspect that they've done, and obviously winning cups, I think that's one thing that they've done that's really good, really stands out, is that they've established that Bolts Nation fan base, and I think even when season tickets go up, and I know they have, they're still there, and they're very, they're a very loyal base. And, when you think about this not being a traditional hockey market, that's pretty amazing.
All right, let's talk some puck. Nikita Kucherov didn't skate this morning. It seems like he's dealing with an illness. So I guess we probably, with Cam Atkinson being called up, you think Kuch is in or out tonight?
Yeah, I don't see him playing tonight. I think that, I think at this point, when you see that he didn't play the third period of the last game, and also too, I think this kind of goes back a little bit to the Buffalo game where he sat for those last, what was it, 7:20. I know that Coop said that, part of it was, the puck hitting him and stuff like that, but he did say that he thought that line needed a reset. And I think Cooch probably needs a little bit of reset too. And I think probably, these haven't been his best two games. I think the last time he went 2 games that were without a point was their last 4-game losing streak. That was on the road in January. So in a lot of ways, this team does roll with Cooch. And I think and at this point, I think what you're seeing right now is not a team that's necessarily undisciplined. I mean, we've seen them turn the puck over various times during the season, and it hurt them. But I do sense a sense of, I don't want to call it fatigue, but just like they're hitting the grind right now. And whether it's those guys that, I do think that the Four Nations guys, they're feeling it. It's no joke that Coop gave them a day off out of nowhere, last week. I think Cooch is probably a little bit, he's dealing with something physically, and I think he's probably dealing with something a little bit, frustrated, I know that he's a guy who, he's not very revealing to us, but what we do know about him is that he plays to a very high standard. He holds himself to a high standard. He holds his teammates to a high standard. So when things aren't going well, you can see his frustration. So I think, knowing that they're playing a Philadelphia team that's lost 5 straight, all of them at home, it's really struggling. But still knowing that they need points too. I would be surprised to see Cooch in the lineup tonight and just kind of see this team kind of find their way a little bit without him tonight, going into, Boston on Saturday. And so this is a tough stretch for this group. And, I'd like to see the kind of urgency that maybe we saw, back when they were 1 point out of the wild card and needed to win both of those games against Ottawa, kind of a back against the wall urgency mentality. I don't think we've seen that the past week or so. And who knows? You look at the standings right now, and they're not necessarily as comfortable as they were, a week ago. So, and that's a long answer to your question, but I probably don't expect to see Cooch in there tonight.
Happy birthday to Braden Point, first and foremost, too. So maybe he can do some magic if Cooch is not in there. But yeah, you mentioned the game that he got quote unquote benched and then played the third period there. And I put a video out there, and I'm pretty sure you saw it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things where you kind of have to answer that. You have to ask that question. It's not always an easy one. You don't know, because you see it in some sports where you ask a question like that, you get your head bit off. But Coop, I thought, was very diplomatic with it. He was always defending his players, but it did, because remember we were talking up in the press box of I shouted out to you and Eric, he looked like he got hit with the puck, and then Coop kind of acknowledged that, but he said that they needed a reset. So I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was just oh, all right, you're hurt, so just relax. Right. It's the same thing when your kid starts crying, and you're just all right, you don't want to come over here, just sit there and cry it out for the next 5 minutes. And then when you're ready to play, come back. Did it seem like that to you? Because it seemed like it was a little bit of both.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. You saw Cooch's body language too.
Yeah.
There's only one other time when I've seen him with that, where his arms crossed and gloves on the railing, and that was when the big 3 got benched, I think 2 years ago in Buffalo.
Yeah.
In the third period. And one thing about Coop is that, there's times when in a post-game setting where he can be, I don't want to say difficult, but that first or second question, what kind of mood he's in, right, and how outgoing he's going to be with his answers. Now, having said that, I've had questions where he'll bite my head off after it, but then he'll give me a great answer.
Right.
But when it comes to stuff like this, I think he's very, he wants to hold players accountable, but he also wants to, he wants to hold himself accountable too. I remember that game in Buffalo, and I remember that was a national game. And so, there wasn't necessarily that many people, because for national games, those guys don't come down to, to talk to post game. So, so there wasn't that many people there. It was Buffalo. But, obviously you knew like those three players didn't play for the entire third period, and, I asked him about it, and he gave one of his best answers that I can remember. It was about, that no one gets special treatment if you're not playing the right way, if you're not giving the effort, you're not going to play. And for him to do that to those 3-star players is pretty amazing. And then say it, and tell us the message that he was trying to get on that too. And I think, with Kucherov, I think it's a little, like he also knows how to handle certain players too.
Right.
And I think you probably handle Kucherov maybe a little bit different than you handle Stamkos or you handle Point. You know what I mean? When Braden Point missed,
and he slept late,
and had to be benched, he had it was a different explanation on that too, So
is that his greatest talent, you think?
I think he knows his players so well. I think he knows. I actually think he knows us really well too. I mean, I think he knows, kind of the way that we're going to react. I know the way we react to certain things too. But
let's be honest. If it wasn't for me there lightening the mood every press conference, he might just be a dick all the time. I mean, we just don't know. I'm not trying to gas my own head up, but I really think sometimes I throw him off. Like he's thinking one thing, and then all of a sudden, like he'll look at my shoes, and then he's like, "Where's the water? And where's the microphone? There's no step here. There's no like." Sometimes I think he may like try to have like this thing structured, and all of a sudden
let's tell everyone the whole story here. You are very strategic in post game about where you sit.
Always.
You sit.
But I've been sitting
right there in the first spot in the corner and you cross your feet and you're right there. So he can't not see those things. So, but you definitely throw him off. I'll give you that.
Good. I do that for you guys. I do that. It's so funny. You're not getting the first question. You're getting the fourth question. You're getting the third question. But yeah, and then he gets back into lawyer mode. Like, all right, let's go. Which is great. But yeah, I think it's one of his greatest strengths is that he knows his players. He knows us. He's a people person, right? And I think his X's and O's have gotten better, obviously, over the years, being involved with the game more. But yeah, I think his ability to relate to people and him knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, and dealing with guys that, it's not easy dealing with a guy like Kucherov. I don't know if many coaches, like, you got to think about it. If Kucher's in a different market, I think about that sometimes. If Kucher's in another market, like, could something go sideways with a media member? Could he be like a coach killer and get people fired? Like, right? Like he's a difficult guy. Like, it's just the way it is. Like we've had this conversation before. Like, it's nothing new. He's just, he's just a different cat, man. He doesn't like talking to people. And, he's in here where we're like, we kind of know the boundaries as the media. Coop knows how to deal with them. So it's just like, he's got a really good situation. I don't know if I'd ever get to a point where Coach would be like, I'm out of here. I want to go somewhere else. Like, I think he knows if he went somewhere else, it wouldn't be so cozy as it is here.
Nikita Kucherov is very smart.
Yes, he is.
He is a very intelligent player. And again, I think that's also another thing. I think he holds, his teammates to a certain level with that as well. That like he knows that other guys don't see things the way he does in terms of like the ice and the way you practice and the stories about the 500 pucks, off the boards and off the rimming and stuff like that. So, but I think he knows it. I think he knows that he's got a good situation here. I mean, obviously his main goal here is to win a cup. I think that, I do think that he was probably a little, stung by the fact that he didn't win the Hart Trophy last year.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he, that's kind of his a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think he's always kind of probably has the chip on his shoulder about little things, but he knows that, like for me, I only go to him when I think that I'm going to get something from him. Right. Mm-hmm. Because if he's in a position where he's not going to be forthcoming, then it does me no good. It does him no good, so, I mean, I've talked to him a couple times recently and he's actually pretty forthcoming about a couple, just like a bit pretty engaged, like in terms of, just talking about the game and talking about, the way he sees it and stuff like that. And he loves talking about other people, about other teams.
Yeah.
He doesn't like talking about himself at all. But I mean, like I talked to him about Jake Gensel. He loves playing with Jake Gensel. He loves the way that his intelligence level, his hockey, quote unquote hockey IQ, the way he skates, the way he kind of finds places. He's not going to blow you away with the he's not going to blow you away with the way he skates or he's not this big guy or anything like that. He doesn't have a huge shot, but I think Kucha really likes playing with him. And like I said, I think I've said this all along is that that line is really going to be the one that kind of is going to have to lead them to through the playoffs in a lot of ways. And the lockdown, the shutdown line is going to have to do its job too. But I mean, he knows. Coach is smart. He knows what he's
the deal.
Yeah,
he's no dummy. Before I let you go, buddy, this time flew by today. I got to get more Rays talk in before because people are killing me. What's up on TampaBay.com? I was showing you guys some love before, but I know you got some great stories up there. Tampa Bay Times.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're following this whole thing with the Kuch thing, and what the deal is with him, his health. Whether it's whether it's something else going on. But yeah, I mean, following the game tonight in Philly, I think that's this is a game they've got to win. You
got to win this one.
No joke.
They got to right the ship here.
Right, they got to right the ship here. It's kind of right there for them. Philly's obviously struggling. You see Cam Atkins in the lineup probably. That'll be interesting because coming back to Philly after they basically gave him the heave-ho.
Going back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Philly.
But yeah, just kind of looking at what's really kind of going on right with the Lightning. I think that, there's a lot of things, and again, I honestly think that they're kind of a tired team right now. They've just kind of get back to that sense of urgency to kind of will them through the next 3 weeks. It's not easy. Obviously a lot of games on the road. Going out west a little bit with games in in Utah and Vegas. That back to back doesn't that's not easy.
Dog days of spring, right?
Right. That first week of April, you've got a bunch of division opponents there too, including the Senators. So, like I said, I'd like to see the next 3 weeks kind of play that sense of urgency that whether you have Nikita Kucherov at 100% or not. I think some of these guys, especially some of the Four Nations guys, are kind of battling it physically right now. So, and probably mentally too. I mean, you go from this to that, and everything. I think that's tough, especially when you're in the grind of the season. And there's no joke. It's been pretty much game off for the past. It's going to be that way all month and into April. So just kind of going into some of that stuff. We were looking ahead and as to what's going on with this team. And like you said, tonight they need a win though.
I've been telling you guys a lot. Support local, especially our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. Now is like the perfect time too with USF, the women's basketball team. I know Joey Knight did a great write-up on them. Men's basketball going at it right now. Everything with the Rays with Mark Topkin, Colleen Wright, the entire crew over there. John Romano, his 2 cents. We know the NFL free agency with Rick Stroud. And then, of course, hockey here with our guy, Ed Encina. Right now is the perfect time. Get your subscription to Tampa Bay Times. It's also a great idea for a gift, right? You want to stay in tune. We got to support our local. This is important. We talk about it when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, and people kind of like looking down their nose at our market and people here in the Bay Area. A way that we can combat that is by continuing to support local, and nobody better to support than our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. So subscribe today and then go read all the Ed stuff and follow him on Twitter/X. At Eddie in the yard, not Eddie on the ice. One of these days we'll get him out there, skate backwards, and do our thing. I appreciate you, Big Goose. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you, Jay. Thanks a lot, man.
You're the man, the one, Ed Encina, throwing up the ones. All right, let's talk a little more Rays baseball before I get off the air. Support local, support local, support local, support local, support local. There you go. Our guy, Ed Encina. He's such a great guy, too. We have such a fantastic time up in the press box when it's Ed, when it's Eric and myself and everybody else up there in the crew. We have such a good time. And then John Cooper and the post-game stuff, it's just like it's unmatched. We don't know when the great Jan, our friend Jan, says Cooper, and Cooper walks in, it just, you never know what's going to happen next. It's a lot of fun. All right, so the big news of the day today, the Rays announcing that they are not going to go forward with the stadium deal. So as of now, it looks like that Stu is going to have to sell. And who is it going to be, right? That's going to be once the initial shock wears off of this. And you're starting to get more and more people commenting on it. I saw something with Rob Manfred already coming out with a statement saying that he was disappointed, but he understands everybody else's disappointment, but they're still committed to the Tampa Bay area, which is great. We also see Mayor Jane Castor on the Tampa side saying how important it is for baseball to stay in the Tampa Bay area, but if it's going to be here on the Tampa side, it's got to make sense for the county and the city, which makes, all the sense in the world. One of the reasons why it was going to be on that side was because of all the money that the Rays were going to get from the St. Pete City Council and from the Pinellas County Commissioners. So, I mean, I don't know. I look at this situation, and when you're talking about the Rays and you're talking about baseball, this was the last straw, right? It was the last straw for Stu, and we knew this was coming. We knew that it was coming. The only thing we didn't know is what day it was going to be announced. Was it going to be March 31st? We knew that was the deadline. We've been having this conversation here on the program with Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times for the last couple of months. We knew March 31st was that date that we had circled on the calendar. That's the date right there. Are we going to be able to see the Rays bring up the paperwork and go, here you go. Here's our funding. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your contributions. Here's our part. Let's move forward. Let's get this stadium built. Let's repair the chop, and let's build this new stadium, and let's revitalize the gas plant district, and everybody wins. And then Stu gets what he wants, because not only does he build the stadium, but he has all of that land around it, and he can still own that even if he sells the team. But as we got closer and closer and closer, and more of the information kept coming out, and more of the humming and hawing and more of the BS kept spewing out, we knew that this day was coming. I don't think anybody was naive to the fact that at some point there was going to be an announcement from the Rays. At some point we were going to hear from Stu Sternberg, and this was the announcement that was going to happen. This was the announcement that was going to be made. This is the move that was going to be made. It's a sad day. It's a sad day in the history of Tampa Bay baseball. And as much as I say that, I look at it like this. Maybe it's a step in the right direction. Maybe this is that first day of the breakup. Maybe it's the first day after the divorce, right? But it's not completely done yet. But maybe this is the time where you finally let your partner know it's over. It's over. We should start going in separate directions. You go your way, I'll go my way, and we'll try to find happiness somewhere else. Because we know that Stu Sternberg, he doesn't have to sell. He could take this place somewhere else, or he could take this team somewhere else. I just don't see that happening. And I also don't see it going to Orlando either. If you're Rob Manfred, you're not taking this team out of this market. You're not. You're staying in the Tampa Bay area. You're not going to Orlando. This is just this is the weirdest thing when people just pop up out of nowhere. Orlando would love to have him. Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. That's great. I'm sure you would love to date a supermodel as well, but she's not going after you because you live in your parents' basement. Sorry, it's not happening. So as bad as I feel for Rays fans today, there is also that other side that I look at. All right, now this is a step in the right direction. Let's move past the Stu Sternberg owning the Rays, and let's now focus on these two groups that are getting together to try to put a bid together to buy this team. And I'm hoping that it's Joe Malloy and his crew, because Joe is a Tampa guy, and as we articulated before with our good buddy Paul Russo, that's known him for 4 decades. That's the type of guy that we want here. We want a guy that's going to own the Rays, that is going to commit to the area, whether it's Tampa or St. Pete. He's going to commit to working with people from the Bay Area, and he's going to focus on community relations and make it so that is a must-see product, a must-watch product, a product where you're willing to drive from all over the state. Forget about, it's too far over a bridge. Listen, if the Rays were that attractive, People will come from Orlando. People will drive up from Miami. People will come from Ocala. People come from all over the freaking state. People will drive from Georgia to spend a weekend in the Tampa Bay area to go to a Rays game. People do that. Right now, I know that's kind of unrealistic and unbelievable to say because it's the Rays, but that's what people do for the Lightning. People make the joke about snowbirds. You know what people do? People that live in areas that are covered with snow in certain times of the year, they fly down to the Bay Area for the week or fly down to the Bay Area for the weekend, and they plan it around the time that their team is here. Oh, wow. We live in Boston. They're playing the Lightning in January. Let's go down there the third week in January. Let's spend a week in Tampa and go see the Bees play the Lightning. I know people wouldn't like that type of thing. Oh, man, we want more Rays fans, more Lightning fans. No, listen, man. You want to fill that stadium. Fill that stadium, fill that arena. The more people in there, the better. They don't ask you what team you support when they click off the attendance, when you walk through that turnstile. They don't even have turnstiles, really, do they, anymore? So I guess they do. Some places do. But this entire situation with the Rays, again, if you're just joining us, the team lets everybody know this stadium deal not going to go through. Don't anticipate anything being signed on March 31st. And I just don't know if, like, is Stu going to show his face? Like, when's the next time we're going to hear from Stu? This guy is going to get booed terribly every single time he shows up to a game from here on out, the rest of his tenure. Because, again, we go back to what happened last year. We went on air 2 hours earlier than we had to because of the big announcement at Tropicana Field. Here to stay. All the community leaders were there. The broadcast partners, the corporate partners were there. Pat and Aaron were there. We were on early. We were just sitting there as everybody was just blowing smoke. This is going to be so great for the Tampa Bay area. Blah, 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 freaking blah. And now what? Shovel's not in the ground. And we're back at square one. And once again, going back to what we were saying a little while ago, today's not the day to be I told you so guy. Today's not the day I never trusted Stu. We should have never believed it. Okay, fine. What does that do? That does nothing. That doesn't add anything to the story. We know that Stu is a guy that you wouldn't trust as far as you could throw him, even with what happened last year. There was anticipation. There was excitement because this was as close as we've gotten to a new stadium, to getting those shovels in the ground. But it never happened. Stu Sternberg, my man. People, and you heard it from Ed Encina. Ed said when he covered that team in the beginning, some of those early Stu years, people were so excited because why? He wasn't Vince Namoli. Well, now we're in a situation where people are going to love the next Rays owner because he's not Stu Sternberg. And for a guy that has brought this team some success over the years, no doubt about it, I'll say it once and I'll say it again. The Rays have been successful during Stu Sternberg's tenure in spite of his ownership, not because of it. We show love to Brian Auld. We show love to Matt Silverman and Eric Neander and all those guys that have been here over the years to make this team competitive every year. The job that Kevin Cash and Kyle Snyder and all these guys within the organization, what they've been able to do to compete in one of, if not the best division in baseball, is miraculous. When you think of what they've had to deal with the lack of support from their ownership. So on a day like this, when Stu Sternberg announces that the stadium deal is dead and the entire Tampa Bay area is kind of looking at him going, yeah, but we're not surprised. We're not surprised because for far too long, Stu has not been one of those pillars in this community that you can trust. You may like the guy, you may dislike the guy, But there's just one thing that we haven't been able to do during his time here, and that's trust him. Again, this is a guy that was more focused on his P&L statement than having a payroll over $100 million. This is a guy that thought it was a great idea to have a split season with half of the games in the Tampa Bay area and the other half in Montreal. They told us to our faces that's the only way that baseball was going to work in the Tampa Bay area. Then a couple of years later, we have a look at this big announcement. The Rays are here to stay. Well, the Rays may be here to stay, but one thing we do know is that Stu Sternberg is not. So when you look at this entire situation with the Rays, I mean, hey, man, again, you're aggravated and you're pissed and you're just, but what, right? What are we mad about? We're mad about something that was inevitable anyway. We're mad about something that we knew was going to happen. Both sides of the argument, whether it was a Chris Lavala, whether it was a John Romano, like they both knew that it was inevitable that this guy was going to sell the team. Some people thought it was going to be soon. Some people, like, we don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know when this guy is going to sell the team. But what we do know is that this guy is not going to be part of the future of this club. And I don't know if you can, rejoice or you can be pissed. Like, I don't know where you fall on this side of the argument, but I think it's a step in the right direction. You start pushing it back. We start getting closer and closer to the time where Stu Sternberg is not the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays. There you go. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me today. I feel like I powered through 2 hours pretty good. I'm still not 100%, but I feel a lot better now than I did Tuesday. What a great show. An incredible turnout. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Incredible turnout to everybody that tuned into the show today. Really, really great stuff. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all of the love and the dedication and the support. You guys have done such a phenomenal job. Continue to like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. A big thank you to all of our guests today, including Aaron Guillen from the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Shout out to the Rowdies. They're in action on Saturday against Tulsa. Also, shout out to Greg Auman from Fox Sports and Eddie Encina from the Tampa Bay Times. And I thought some of the most poignant conversations that we had today, we had with two guys that don't even cover baseball, but they know the ins and outs of the Tampa Bay Rays because they've covered it. Greg covers football. Ed covers hockey. But both those guys have covered the Rays before. And I thought some of their points that they've had, Greg talking about, new ownership like it's inevitable. Ed talking about how you're invested in the teams, but you're invested in the players. It matters. And hopefully when you have a new ownership come in here, hopefully you have a group that understands that having players here for a long time and planting a seed and planting in some roots here in the Tampa Bay area, like that's just only going to help you moving forward. That's only going to be good for you when you're trying to get people to lay down money for season tickets and to buy those jerseys. You draft a guy, you develop a guy, and you keep him here for 10, 12, 15 years. You win championships with that guy. You raise his number and his jersey into the rafters, and it stays there for life. I mean, look at what Marty and Vinny have done here, right? And I know they were, when you look at Marty getting drafted here, Vinny getting drafted here, Marty coming after being with the Flames, but look at what they were able to do. They were here for a while. They brought the championships here. Look at the Hedmans of the world, right? You look at the football side, obviously the best example right now with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Levante David. Like those guys, they will live forever in the minds and the hearts of Tampa Bay sports fans forever. We just don't have that with the Rays. And I really hope that whether it's Joe Malloy and his group or any other group, they understand the commitment that is needed to make baseball work in the Tampa Bay area. Just because Stu wasn't able to do it doesn't mean it can't be done. Just because Stu Sternberg didn't make baseball work in the Tampa Bay area doesn't mean it can't be done. I've said that for many, many years, and I will go to my grave saying the same freaking thing. I've seen hundreds of thousands of people on baseball fields all across the Sunshine State. If you make it so that people have to go to Rays games, not want, but have to go to Rays games, it will change the trajectory of this franchise forever. It is doable. I think it will happen, but it needs to happen with the right owners. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Back in action tomorrow at noon here on the program. Plenty to get into. And again, of course, I'll be on the call this weekend for USF baseball, so check me out there. Quick update for basketball, trailing by 9 with 7:32 left in the second half. So shout out to Jaden Reed, 14 points, Brandon Stroud with 10. Shout out to Coach Fletch and the Bulls as they look to come back and beat the Wichita State Shockers. Follow me on all social media platforms. Like and subscribe on YouTube. I love you. Thank you. Appreciate all the love and support. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher Podcast.